Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jungle Report YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the Joe Burrow interview that happened on July 30th, I believe. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about some of the questions he answered, and yeah. So, first thing is he's very excited to start training camp. Great to be out there with everyone. Day one, very great first training camp day, a very intense day. I'll get more into that in a different episode. But yeah, very intense day one. He was praising Eric All Jr. Was injured for the second half of his rookie season and the entirety of last year. Very bad knee injuries, but he's back out there, not as sharp as he will be eventually, because he's still suffering with the injury. But yeah, Joe Burrow is super happy for him to be back, and he'll have a big role in this offense this year, specifically probably with blocking. But yeah, one thing he talked about was putting all the pieces together and figuring out where we are as a team, so we understand what our weaknesses are, we understand what our strengths are, and we just fit in all the puzzle pieces, and yeah, we go from there. um, a little side related, Joe Burrow bought a telescope because he said that he's always wanted one, and he got to look at like stars and nebulas and galaxies, and people are now nicknaming him Rocket Man because of that. But we'll see if that actually becomes a real nickname of his. He said the more reps, the better we are. Like, he's eager to get in more reps so that he'll be more prepared for week one. And I definitely agree with that. There's definitely a sense of urgency there. You know, and yeah, just the more practice, the better we are as a team. One thing that was really good about day one, Joe Burrow said, was there was no false starts, which is really nice. Usually he said we shouldn't be having any false starts in the first place, but it's really good that we're not having any false starts on day one. There were a few motion errors, one by himself and a few by the other receivers. I believe one of them was on Jamar Chase, because he said that in his interview. But I'll talk about that interview in a future episode. But yeah, only a few motion errors, no false starts, just a very productive first day out there. Uh, he had to throw some blind throws because of Dexter Lawrence. He's talking about how one of the biggest differences from last year to this year in the defense is definitely the defensive lineman, and more specifically the size difference. He had to throw some blind passes because of how big the defensive line has gone with like people like Dexter Lawrence, and yeah, it's definitely been harder to make throws with the improved defensive line, but that's only going to help us when it actually counts in the regular season. But it's good practice for Joe Burrow as well. Talked about Chase Brown as a very complete player. He called him a complete back. Not only being able to run the ball very well, but also a great receiver out there and blocker. He said that if Chase Brown wasn't a running back, he would easily be a wide receiver, and people look at him as a wide receiver because of how good he is at catching the ball. He talks about how he always makes people miss. It's really hard to bring down Chase Brown. The first player is really hard to bring down Chase Brown, and yeah, I totally agree. He had 1,456 yards last season, scrimmage yards, passing and running. And the season before that, he had 1,350 yards, which is also really good. And I believe Chase Brown does have the goal of getting 1,800 scrimmage yards passing and receiving. Sorry, not passing. Receiving and rushing, which would break the all-time record of like scrimmage yards from a Bengals player, which is currently held by James Brooks, which is the recent Hall of Famer. And I think his was 1,773 scrimmage yards, receiving and rushing. So yeah, but more on that in the training camp day 2 video. He said that Chase Brown probably doesn't get enough opportunities as he should just because of the receivers we have, like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It's really hard to give guys a lot of opportunities when your wide receiver 1 and 2 are T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So that's definitely understandable, but he's still an amazing player no matter what. Same thing with Andre Yosivas. It's hard to be a wide receiver 3 and get a lot of yards, not only because you're a wide receiver 3, but because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are 1 and 2. So it's definitely hard for them to get opportunities. But Yosivas had like 500 receiving yards last season, I believe. So he's still getting in yards. A little bit of a rough season for him. I believe he had 5 drops, which isn't the greatest, but he's definitely improving. Joe Burrow said that this was Yosivas's best offseason so far. That he's putting in a lot of work, which is nice to hear. Another thing Joe Burrow talked about the defensive line was getting the ball out faster. He said like with this defensive line, like he can't take his time when throwing the ball. He would like the extra second to read the defense and know who he's gonna throw to, but with this defense, he has to throw it out a lot faster, which is not a bad thing because this is just practice. So when the real season comes, it'll be great to see. And probably one of the highlights of the interview, of the 12-minute interview, was the reporter asked Joe Burrow, like, so basically in day 1, Jamar Chase and DJ Turner had a bit of a fight, and right after that little fight, as you will, Joe Burrow's next 2 passes were out routes to both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and he threw them to the person who he was covered by, which was DJ Turner. And one of the reporters asked if the first 2 passes thrown towards DJ after the fight was intentional, and Joe Burrow made a really funny answer and said, "I guess we'll never know." And everyone started laughing. It was probably pointing towards, yes, they were intentional, but I guess we'll never know. So yeah, a bit of a shorter interview from Joe Burrow. Usually those interviews are like 20 to 25 minutes, but this one was only 12 minutes, so not as many things to talk about. Yeah, I don't know what else is there to cover. Praising Eric All to be back, playing a big role as the team. Getting out there, reps. Playing maybe they've played. They haven't played under the center a lot, so they're just kind of figuring out like what we're gonna do this year. In the past, they've definitely played more shotgun probably, because I would say we're probably more of a pass-heavy team considering the receivers and quarterbacks we have. But yeah, just kind of figuring that stuff out. Offensive line doing good. I'm sure Joe Burrow he's very happy with his offensive line and how that's going. And yeah, that'll be the conclusion of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.